All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Michelle Martin. I am your co-chair for EXP Military Network, but also your education and programming coordinator. And today we have Josh Polanco, all the way from Lisbon, Portugal, here to talk to us about the next chapter into expat life, which is so dreamy to me. Love it. I love the idea of like, let's just go abroad and look at all these beautiful buildings and eat this amazing food and drink wine. And I mean, anyway, that's what I envision expat life to be. So I'm super excited to have you, Josh, and just to kind of hear
Oh,
like, I don't know, whatever it is that you have to say, because I know nothing, right? Like, I don't know what I don't know. So please teach me all of the things. And yeah, I will let you take it from here. Thank you.
thanks, Michelle. Great to see you again. It was nice to connect with you when we were in Miami at
I
EXPCon.
know. You in
Um,
Utah?
I'm not sure. We'll see.
It's far.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's a little bit different. Like Miami is pretty easy to get to from Lisbon,
Yes.
but if things go well, yeah, I think maybe John David and I will definitely be out there, and it would be great to connect again with the military community. So, but thank you
For
for
sure.
having us.
Of
We
course.
truly appreciate it. So yeah, my name is Josh Polanco. I'll give a little bit more of an intro, but today talking about basically the expat life. And if you've wanted to, whether it be an agent or you have clients, which there are a lot of people that are talking about moving, or even investors, this is a great rundown of kind of what is going on here in Portugal, but also a little bit of like the story of the expat life and hopefully some motivation if you've ever wanted to or if you've thought about moving abroad. But of course, with such a big chapter and such a big decision to move abroad. I definitely say that I am now like on my fourth or fifth life, and this is a different chapter of my life for sure. Um, how I'm connected with the military community. I am a Navy Gold Star spouse, and so unfortunately, my spouse passed away when I was 30 years old, and we were stationed in Hawaii at that time. After that point, I moved to San Diego and got my license in California while I was doing my MBA, and got into the real estate world there, which I'll talk about in a second as well. But just some reflections on that. Of course, such a large, traumatic, and crazy experience made me realize that like life is fleeting in many ways, and that I need to live every day to the best. And so, since then, now almost 10 years later, moving from Hawaii to San Diego, and then taking a sabbatical for almost 2 years and traveling to 33 countries. I now find myself living in Lisbon, Portugal, which is a beautiful and amazing experience. On the call with me today is a teammate of mine who I'll let him introduce himself, but is also in the same position in the sense of living in Lisbon. So, John David, if you want to take it away and give some information about you.
Sure. My name is John David Whalen. I was actually born in Baltimore, and I went to the Naval Academy. I graduated in 2000. I served in the Navy as resigned as a lieutenant. I was stationed in the Middle East. We were the first response to 9/11. When I left the Navy, I moved to Los Angeles, and I was in entertainment for about 20 years. And then, like Josh, on about my fourth or fifth life, and that included uh, finding somewhere else to settle. And I went to a couple of different places. Went to Costa Rica to see what that was like, and I realized for a lot of reasons that wasn't for me. And then I ended up moving to Portugal on a whim. At the time, the D7 visa was very easy to acquire. They had an NHR, and I moved to Portugal before ever actually being in Portugal. And I moved here as a resident with not too much expectation, just kind of a let's see what happens kind of mindset. And realize what an incredible city this is, what an incredible place this is, the other human beings that are here from an expat perspective. and the Portuguese perspective. But as an expat perspective, everybody has a story about what brings them here. And what's unique at the moment is everybody's story has some sort of connection to everyone else. And it's really exciting. And the level of integrity and honesty and true friendship that I've found here, uh, I will honestly say in the 3 years that I've been here is in some ways dwarfed the 20 years that I spent in Los Angeles. So it's been very, very positive. I actually bought a house here and renovated it, and that was an adventure up to its own. But I met some very, very impressive human beings in every way. And I actually had a real estate license in California, in Monterey for a few years. And that was my connection to real estate. I bought and sold real estate throughout the United States for the last 20, 25 years. So when I moved here, it seemed like a natural progression to really move into a next phase of development and developing properties. And, I've had the privilege of meeting some really interesting people, including Josh. And, we want to develop a team here that is based on, that is character driven, integrity driven, so that, the people that are coming here can feel safe purchasing and operating into an environment that is foreign.
Yeah, and I think to piggyback that, both of us we've had different life experiences. Like I used to be in pharmaceutical sales, always been in outside sales. I'm pretty extroverted, I would say. Then when I got my license in California, in San Diego, was primarily working with a loan officer, and we were helping veterans and military service members with the VA loan, with those that were relocating because they were PCSing to San Diego, and beautiful, heart-driven work. And also to see how people's decision has built them wealth. And now the beautiful thing is having this experience is realizing that there's also this ability to build wealth overseas. And actually, that's even more exciting because you're completely, we always talk about diversifying your portfolio. Now you're diversifying your portfolio with a different currency, and just like a more exciting construction that's happening. I mean, we walk through some of these buildings here, they're hundreds of years old. It could be scary, but also a really beautiful experience, than kind of seeing maybe a brand new building that's downtown in Miami or San Diego. It has a different feel, and it's a pretty neat experience. But I think for both of us, John David and myself, having the real estate experience in the United States and then coming to Portugal, which does things a bit differently, which we'll talk about in a second, is it's a blessing, and also it can be a curse at times because things are done differently here in Portugal, and so I've learned a lot of patience. And I've also learned that like relationships and truly, of course, relationships are important in the United States, but building good grounded relationships here is really important because some of the safety practices and even um, what am I trying to say here? Laws are not in place as they are in the United States. So it's been a journey in that sense to learn, and we're also hoping to bring some efficiencies. And the beautiful thing about being with EXP Portugal is that EXP is really focused on technology and growing, allowing me to grow as a team member and teammate. And of course, some of the other opportunities with revenue share and things like that. So I think for both of us, that realization of change came for me when it was 2022. I was finishing my master's degree, and I had I had told myself like I always wanted to live overseas, and things had been doing really well in real estate. COVID was just ending. A lot of people were moving to Southern California, but I realized like I just wasn't. My heart was changing, and so that's when I decided to literally sell all of my stuff and start living out of two bags for almost 2 years. I had a one-way ticket to Singapore and made my way around Southeast Asia for a few months, then made my way to Africa and the Middle East, and then to Europe, which was such an amazing experience and heart-opening experience. And it made me just realize that we all are in this life, and we all have a lot of the um, same things that are happening, but the one thing that is constant is change. Um, what was something that like was an aha moment for you, John David, when you were like, okay, I want to make this adventure overseas?
Well, for me, it was the opportunity to gain dual citizenship. That was an important aspect. It was the opportunity to have expat experience. I've traveled extensively, like you, Josh. I think I'm at like just over 50 countries, but I'd never lived anywhere else, despite the fact that I lived in, 7 or 8 different states in the United States. I just never lived anywhere else, and I thought that was something that I wanted to have in my life. And I wasn't sure what this experience was going to be. I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, but I knew I wanted to see. And for me, the experience has been nothing but really positive. I thought to myself, if I'd ever have the opportunity to really travel abroad, if I was somebody that could A, handle it, and B, would enjoy it. And in my time here, I never once had the thought, I messed up. Right, I need to go home. Uh, it was just really, really positive from day one. That doesn't mean it didn't have its challenges, but I never once questioned my choice to move here.
Yeah, and I think that the motivation here is m many times you're on calls like these, and it's and in the real estate world, and it's true, you have to build a book of business and you have to be in the area that you're at. But that doesn't mean that you can't change that you are forever stuck there. And
Mhm.
basically, our thought was like, well, if we do something different, can we win? And can I win? And so, if you're an agent that's been in the market for a very long time, and for some reason you just need a little spark, I think that there's a lot of opportunity within EXP, not just in Portugal, but we just launched in Romania, we just launched in Netherlands, and we just launched in all of these different international countries. That your expertise in some of these countries that honestly are a little late to adopting technology, to the way that they are regulated and things like that. You might want to pull your hair out every once in a while, but you have a one up in that.
Mhm.
And so John David and I are here to definitely help mentor if you've ever thought about moving abroad and what you could do with your business, because the beautiful thing is we've been able to do that. And don't get me wrong, there's been a lot of times of questioning, and there are some days that I want to pull out my hair, but it's been a beautiful experience in the same sense because I'm always learning, and it's really reinvigorated me in so many different ways. Uh, what do you think about that, John David?
I mean, I totally agree. I would also offer that some of the skill sets that you have coming from an American environment, especially in real estate here, which I coin as the new frontier or the new Wild West. There aren't as many rules and there aren't as many standards of practice here. So the things that you do as an American in real estate that are just what you would consider to be normal will actually mean you have an advantage here. A good example from our recent is Josh has started to introduce open houses. And that sounds silly coming from an American environment. But the no one does open houses here. It just the perspective isn't there. And yet Josh has begun to operate some open houses and been extremely successful. And he looks like he invented the wheel. And all he did was take an experience that he knew was to be successful with a track record across the United States and apply it here where no one else was. So, a lot, and that's just one example of some of the other standards of practice that you'll have as something that you built into the way that you communicate with clients, the way you treat clients, how you put clients' needs first, will give you a distinct advantage over, I mean, maybe I'm being hyperbolic, but I'd say at least maybe 85 to 90% of all agents that are currently practicing here.
Absolutely. No, totally agree with you. Um, so, why specifically Lisbon and why now for me? As I mentioned, I took some time and traveled around, and my goal was to figure out where I wanted to go. And in a year, I kept coming back to Lisbon. And it just, both in my heart and also in an intentional way, it seemed like a perfect opportunity. Now, if you were to come to Lisbon today, you would see so many cranes in the sky. The development that
Mhm.
is happening here is through the roof, and that's a beautiful thing in the sense of money being forecasted and being brought into the city. But besides that, it really is a beautiful place to be. You have beaches that are 45 minutes away. The summer here is very relaxed. You have other cities like Porto and Algarve, which are um, a little more sleepy, but also very robust and beautiful places to get away to. But you're also in Europe. So to fly to London for 45 euros and spend a long weekend, to fly to Amsterdam, to go to these different places. Michelle was talking about Spain, getting to Spain easily, and experiencing all these different cultures and food. And right now, Carnival is going on in Lisbon, and there's a big Brazilian community that's here, and the city is just alive. It's such a different experience, and for me, getting into the real estate world, I've noticed that the need to always be on, where I felt like in Southern California was the case, is not the same. Now, that could also be annoying at points, but you really do have a change of mindset and a change of heart when you're here because the attitude is just a bit slower, and it's also so amazing to be in a city that is so old because Lisbon is one of the oldest capitals. And just to wake up in the morning and it's quiet and to walk around and to imagine what happened there or here is a beautiful thing. What are some of your reasons why you decided Lisbon was the spot for you, JD?
Well, Josh, mine was very different. You could actually argue, I almost threw a dart at the dartboard and ended up here with as I said, I had never been to Lisbon. I knew it was access to Europe. I knew that they had offered me an opportunity financially to make it possible. And I took a leap. I had no idea if I'd like it. As I said, I'd never been here. So getting here, I had no expectations and I just observed, started to participate in what it was. And so why Lisbon? That's a little bit of a dart sheet. But why now? Now I have a lot of examples of why Lisbon right now is, I think, one of the cultural centers of Western civilization. I really do. I think in Europe in particular, Lisbon is leading in a lot of different ways. And, to this point, it's lifestyle. It's extremely safe when it when compared with other Western communities, and it's access to everywhere. It's both a small town, but it has everything that you would want from a big city. That was my biggest concern. I came from Los Angeles, which has more people in the city than this country does by about a third. And that made me nervous. How am I going to get bored? And there are ample Michelin star restaurants, there are concerts, there are major events and celebrations and things to engage in here that does not typically come from a city of 500 to 600,000 people. It's really something special happening here. And it's this amazing small town experience with big city offerings. Uh, the last time I experienced something like that was probably in Boston. At some point during my Naval Academy career, I felt like Boston was this little big city, and I feel it's very similar here, except the weather's a little bit warmer traditionally than it is in Boston, especially at this time of year. So, why now? It's Lisbon is exploding off the map, and people are starting to discover why this capital city, which is much more important to the Europeans than it is to the Americans, but why this capital city that has, as Josh pointed out, access to the beach, which is the only capital city in Europe that does, um, and it's stable and really, really committed to growth.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting. One of the big tech companies, Cloudflare, is moving some of their offices from San Francisco to Portugal, to Lisbon specifically. Microsoft has offices here, and they're doing some AI things. 2 years ago, Lisbon was crowned Innovation Capital of Europe, which is amazing. And they're putting a lot of money into startups and innovation pods. But besides that, there is huge tourism that's happening. So we'll talk about some of the investment opportunities that are here, if you have investors per se. But it's there is a lot that is happening in such a small city that also has some repercussions, and I think that needs to be talked about as well. But a lot of that revolves around, really a sympathetic way of how can we help local Portuguese and make sure that the wealth is being spread in a way. Portugal and Lisbon is becoming a really big hub for digital nomads, and we'll talk about the ability to come to Portugal in that sense. But there's a stat that there are more women digital nomads in Lisbon than any other city, and the reasoning is because it's safe. And for myself, walking around at night, which there's a huge it's the Iberian coast, so especially during the summer, it's all nightlife. You go to Spain, you're eating dinner at 10 o'clock at night. The same here, but it's super friendly and super safe, which is beautiful for the charm that it has, and I don't see that changing. So some reasons that relocating and people, and we're having these discussions with folks why they're wanting a new life abroad. Specifically, let's say from the American standpoint, the cost of living. There's a lot of folks that are just seeing the cost of living in the United States rising and rising and rising, and that's happening everywhere. That's also happening here in Portugal. But we'll share some stats that show that like the cost of living here is much more manageable. And I would also say that there's a different mindset. Even though I'm in real estate now, I live in downtown central Lisbon, and I don't have a car, and I don't want a car.
Mhm.
It would be more of a pain in the butt, and that means I don't have costs of car insurance, I don't have costs of gas, I don't have maintenance, parking, all of those things. But I still get around and I can go in an Uber for €6 across town, which is, I don't know if you can do that anywhere in the United States right now. As I was mentioning earlier too, there's a work-life balance. There is most Portuguese take off the entire month of August, which was new to me the first year that I moved here. But there's this desire to really to live, and that when you compare like some of the maternity leave, when you compare just the time off and holidays that there are that they still have the European flair in that sense, and wanting their people who are here to take time to rest and to live their life. And I think, as John David was also mentioning, the cultural experiences, there is so much that is growing in Portugal in general in regards to food scene, in regards to bringing different cultures together, such as Brazilians and Portuguese and Angolans, and celebrating who they are. And that offers many different experiences. My friends here are very diverse. I have a friend from Uzbekistan. My neighbor below me is Russian. The neighbor below him is Filipino and Belgium. And having those different experiences and getting to meet people that are very focused on wanting to build relationships has been a beautiful thing. Do you have
Mhm.
anything else to add here of like some possible motivations of why people are looking to move abroad?
Well, I would add on like cost of living. So the cost of living in Lisbon is increasing and it's going to continue to do that. However, as the cost of living increases, one of the interesting things about Lisbon and the greater Lisbon area is there's all these little satellite cities that are yet to be developed from Tomar, Evora, and these small little, really quaint and beautiful little places that the cost of living there is going to be more. Uh, it's much easier to live. Lisbon is going to increase over time and in the near future fairly quickly, but Portugal itself is going to grow slower. And so you'll have those opportunities based on whatever you or your clients are looking for. Um, something that I'm going to mention. When you come here on a D7, which is what I did. If you're a retiree, that's fully capable. But if you're a veteran and you have a disability rating, anything above 50% will qualify you for a D7 visa here. I would argue that you would have a tough time living on that in Lisbon at 50%. But that being said, you would qualify for your visa and your residency, and then you would be able to supplant that with other things. Um, so, the opportunities here are not just based in Lisbon, right? They're based in Greater Lisbon and throughout that are dramatically different as far as cost of living, work-life balance, and the different cultural experiences. In Lisbon, you're going to have the American Club and these other places where you'll be able to find people from the United States that are here for similar reasons. And the connection there is very strong. But to Josh's point, it's very multicultural. And it's a little bit like, the melting pot of the United States of old, where people are mixing together and learning how to cooperate more than they are looking to segregate and compete.
Yeah, well said. Truly, I believe that for sure. To talk about just the cost of living comparison, and as John David mentioned, prices have gone up, especially after COVID and since there's been more of an immigration push. But compared to a flat in New York City, you're talking about almost 50% lower than
Mhm.
something in the luxury world, or even what prices are for the amount of square meters or square feet that you would get. Of course, everyone in the we're talking about the United States. There's different pockets of what the affordability is in the United States as well. Coming from Southern California, I can tell you that my costs are about half of what I was paying in La Jolla. And it's It's a different experience, you know. For example, I don't have a dryer anymore, so I my life is a little more
Yeah.
simple and but that in itself also is so interesting because it's like, okay, I casually do things instead of in a rush. And I realize, okay, I can take some time to do some laundry and hang it out and have that traditional experience. The other part that really makes a big difference, though, is the daily expenses. As I was mentioning, transportation costs are lower, and you have specifically, let's say you're in a bigger city like Lisbon or Porto, you have great transportation that will get you around, or you walk. I walk so much more now that I'm here in this city. The going out to dinner, we could split, have four of us, so we could have a bottle of wine, have a great entree, and maybe split an appetizer and be out of there with 20 euros each person. Whereas in the
Mhm.
United States now, I think going out is at least $100 to $200 a night, depending on where you are. A cup of coffee is still a beer is a euro 50. So when you compare some of those costs as well, and even healthcare costs, I know a lot of people are always wondering about healthcare. I am on TRICARE overseas, which allows me to then submit my receipts. But I'll give one example. Last year, I had to get an MRI for my shoulder, and what normally I think would be a few $1,000s in the United States was 350 euros here at a reputable brand new hospital. So that's part of also, I think, the European way of being a bit more social and really focused on some of those social efforts. Um, I think we can go to the next slide on that. So yeah, as mentioning the trend right now, there's a lot of talk about Portugal. There's a lot of Americans that are interested, but not just Americans. There's people from the UK. There's folks from all over the world that are interested in Portugal and Spain, and we'll talk about some of the differences there. But partially, we haven't talked about what like the landscape is here, and it's beautiful. You have beautiful beaches. We've had some rain these past few months, but the for the most part, the summer here are beautiful sunny days. That it is easy to get more into that Portuguese lifestyle of slowing down and enjoying and making sure that you're taking some rest. Um, the other part that is driving this is obviously remote work, and after COVID, the ability to be overseas and either working remotely or starting something that allows you to be working remotely. And I think as John David mentioned, these communities are evolving, which is beautiful. It's I've met so many folks as well that are driven, that are coaches, that are doing very interesting work that is very heartfelt and passion filled compared to many times the folks that I still chat with. And I'm not trying to America bash or anything like that, but people are just tired and there's a different mentality to work here, which is kind of interesting. Any thoughts on that, John David?
And I agree. I'm definitely able to pursue a more purpose-driven life while at the same time interested in, creating wealth as well abroad. It's a it's a different lifestyle for sure, but it's fun if you can kind of find your way through it. And one of the real opportunities here is being honest and driven, and you know those types of characteristics can really set you above and beyond what else is happening around here, and you get noticed, and suddenly you find yourself in rooms with people that I would never have been able to find myself in the equivalency in Los Angeles after spending 20 years there. So your opportunity to make an impact here is is pretty significant just by being the person that you are coming from the United States.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so funny walking the streets sometimes of Lisbon, and it's not a big city, but it's you see people all the time, and you're like, wow, this feels so quaint and so small. And
Hmm.
if you really put yourself out there, which I think I would recommend because you need to have that support as an expat, you will get reaps of benefits that come from that.
And
Um,
friend visit, walking around, it's you always run into people you know. Always,
yeah, for sure. It's
always. It's impossible not to.
It's amazing. So what is the opportunity here within the EXP MilNet community? There's plenty of veterans that are living abroad that have had the experience. Maybe they have PCSed and lived abroad. They're in Spain. They're undoubtedly in your sphere of influence. They're in your book of business. There's undoubtedly some folks that are thinking about moving to Portugal and may not realize that you could be a great resource for them because of being with EXP, whether they want to move to France or if they want to move to Japan, which is now a country that EXP is a part of. And this data, they're saying that there's around 200 to 250,000 veterans that reside abroad, but I suspect these days that there's plenty that are many that are thinking about it. And we'll talk about what that community looks like and maybe how we could help you or combine our efforts together. Um, I think this is, though, what a lot of people are looking at and thinking about these days. And John David, I'll let you speak to this slide.
So, in the dual citizenship side, that's something that was appealing to me, right? Similar to the United States, if you move to Florida and you become a US citizen, you can then just move to any other state in the Union. At the moment, that's very similar to the European Union. By coming into Portugal, which allows for dual citizenship, and not every country in the European Union does. For example, Spain does not. If you move to Spain and you become a naturalized citizen of Spain, they do require that you renounce your natural born citizenship. And I would assume many of you and your veteran clients wasn't really an option for me. So moving to Portugal, they have both a double taxation agreement and a dual citizen agreement with the United States. So I can come here, get a Portuguese citizenship, which will give me access to all of the European Union, Angola, and Brazil to move very, very, very freely. So now I'm on, four different continents through two citizenships. And, the Portuguese passport is extremely powerful. And this opportunity after you have citizenship, like I said, you don't have to stay in Portugal if that's not something that you want to do anymore. Part of moving abroad is generated by the ambition that a lot of people have to be on the move and to keep going. People ask me, "Oh, well, are you going to stay in Portugal forever?" I had no idea. At some point, I thought I'd stay in Los Angeles forever, but yet here I am. So the opportunity with dual citizenship really opens up a lot. And in the context of Western civilization, the two citizenships between the United States and Portugal really gives you access to every corner of the Western world to move to at will.
Absolutely. And so here, specifically in Portugal, the visas are the ticket in, right? So there are a few different visas that are available. All of these I put up that I think would be really applicable to the military community. But the what I mean by the ticket in is you get your visa approved and then you become a resident of Portugal. All of these allow, at the moment, now things are changing, and this is also one of the reasons why I put the why now, why Lisbon earlier,
Mm,
is because immigration is changing, and that's changing all over the world. And the opportunity, for example, the golden visa has changed drastically in a few years. The D7 visa and the D8 visa, which is different in form, are changing with income requirements and things like that. So there. uh, there's no crystal ball, right? We don't know what governments are going to do, but I do suspect that things will only get a little bit tighter and harder. So if you have the ability to chat with clients or you know anyone that is thinking about this, we have a lot of resources to be able to help with the immigration side. Quickly, the D7 visa, which I'm under and John David is under, this is a passive income visa. The requirements are actually not that strict. So you can see you have to be able to show 920 euros per month in passive income. What does that mean? That's dividends, that's passive income from rental income, that's income from that's anything passive basically. And you have to
VA
be able to
disability.
show. VA
Yeah.
disability, exactly. Yeah. For me, I have survivor benefits that allowed me to be able to apply for the D7 visa. With this, where there's an opportunity, is that you have to have a rental contract or property ownership, a deed that is included with the application. Now, of course, this sounds really easy. It does take some time. It takes about a few months for the application to get approved. And then once that is approved, you get your visa stamped in your passport, and then you come over and you can get your residency. The D8 visa is the digital nomad visa. And that is basically where you have to show and your company has to show that you can work as a remote worker in the country. The income requirements are a bit more, so it's about 4% or what am I trying to say? 400% more of the minimum wage. So you have to be able to show in 2026 about 3,680 euros per month. Again, with that, you have a rental contract or property ownership that needs to be included with the application. And then there's the golden visa, and there's a lot of talk about golden visas all over the world. This is what has changed, and the immigration has changed in Portugal here. Previously, it was where you could purchase real estate. Now it's strictly through investment. But I have some clients that are moving from Portland, from Oregon right now, and they are wanting to do this so that their sons and their family will have this Portuguese passport. They're looking at a plan B. They're also buying an investment property that's here. How this works is it's a much larger investment. So you're putting around 500,000 euros into an investment fund, which will produce in yields. Some of these we're looking at are like 6 to 8%. Some of them could be up to 11%. Uh, all of these, I recommend that you have good legal advisors working with you, because that is one of the things that the bureaucracy is real when it comes to the government. But the golden visa also doesn't have as long of a stay. So you only need to be in the country 7 days for the first 2 years and then 14 days after the 2 years. So that means that you could still live in the United States or live wherever you want to be, but you're still working on the opportunity of getting Portuguese citizenship. All of these are huge opportunities. The D7, D8, again, require you to be in the country. The D7 allows us to work here. So we have Social Security. D8 does not. But specifically, we will have our contact information at the end. If you have any questions about any of these, we're happy to introduce you to some of the folks that we work with or able to chat a bit more about what these are like. Any thoughts on this, JD?
I just have one thing to add. The difference between you might look at that 500,000 euro and that 250,000 euro and say, like, why would anybody ever choose the 500,000 euro? The 500,000 euro is an investment return with a return. And then that return, that initial investment is locked up for the amount of time that you takes for your visa to mature. That was 5 years. There's been talk about going to 10. Whether or not all that happens, again, Josh is right, remaining on the government. However, um, the 250,000 euro is a contribution and is not an investment. So you give that money to a cultural or scientific qualified investment, and that money is just given them, and you don't get it back. You don't get a return on the money. So that's the difference. It costs less, but it's not an investment that you get to recoup.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification for sure. And like I mentioned, all of these, this is very simplified. There is more that is required, but each of us have done that and certainly have the contacts and the right people in place that can assist you if you want to learn more about that. The cool thing about to go back to the slide real quick, previously, of course, we're in real estate, we're with EXP, but the neat opportunity is that we get to work with clients that are along this process, not just in the real estate world, but also through the immigration process. So you get to meet people in all of these different stages of life, which is very cool here. And it feels a bit different than just selling a home, being able to watch people that are wanting to move overseas. So the foreign opportunity when it comes to real estate, you'll see we put three of the countries that EXP is in, Portugal, Spain, France. Each of them are doing a lot of foreign investment right now. The 65% of the investment activity that is coming into Portugal is actually from foreign investment, compared to about 14% in Spain. And of course, you also have to take into account Portugal is much smaller than Spain and France in that size. But what I'm trying to say is there is a big opportunity and there's a lot of foreign directed investments that are coming here. And that's not just, for any reason. There's a lot of folks that see the opportunity of, okay, maybe I want to have a summer home in Portugal or in Spain, or I want to spend more time there. And they're seeing that there's plenty of opportunities. As I mentioned, there are so many cranes in the sky that are happening in Lisbon specifically. The new development is nuts. To that point, though, it's still not enough for what is driving and the amount of folks that are coming here. But a lot of cool construction, a lot of different investor opportunities, hotels and things like that. That if you have military investors that are wanting to look into another country to put some money in, they should definitely look at these three countries besides the ones that EXP is in. Any thoughts, John David? No. Okay.
Nope,
Um,
that's pretty covered.
So, the other thing that most people and don't realize is that you can actually obtain lending overseas, and it's not that difficult. Now, you might have to have a larger down payment, but the way that lending works here in Portugal specifically is that everything is done through income. So there's no credit scores, there's nothing of that sort. You have to be able to prove your income. The banks will be stringent, but they want to see what your ability is. Usually, if you are a resident, you can put 20% down. And if you're coming here as an investor, then you're going to be probably putting a larger chunk around 30% down. But the ability to lend and get money overseas is actually not that difficult. There's just a few you need to get a NIF number, which is a tax ID number, and things like that. And again, we have plenty of resources to be able to assist you with that. John David, you've recently went through that experience. You want to give some thoughts?
Sure, I actually did this about 2 years ago. I got a mortgage for my property, and when I looked into it, Josh is right. The limiting factor is the amount of money that you're going to have to put down. I had to put down 30%, even though I was a resident. But the mortgage rates are incredibly low. So I have a 3.6% APR, whereas I think they're offering 2.8 now,
2.6, yeah,
fixed, fixed
2.5%.
over 25 years. So the difference between Europe and the United States is you can't just get a 30-year loan at any age. They max it out at 70. So if however old you are, it's either maximum 30 or the difference between where
Up
you're
to
at now
75.
and the years or 75. And that's just the way it is. And so, I was able to get a 25-year mortgage, but at 3.6%. So that's fixed forever. So, the ability to invest that money elsewhere, if you actually were sitting on that kind of cash, you could put that money elsewhere in something as simple as an index fund in the United States, and now you essentially have free money
Mm,
um, to use to borrow against your property. And so, the opportunities here using mortgages are significant. I'm not sure what your clients would do if you could offer them a 3.6% fixed 25
mm.
year loan in the United States. But here it's fairly standard. They do prefer to give out 5-to-1 arms, which can sometimes come in as low as like 0.05% interest rates. But again, those are on arms, and so I prefer to go with a longer term strategy.
Absolutely. And I think just to pinpoint this, like folks that think that they cannot get lending overseas, it's
Yeah,
they can, and it's
yeah,
actually not
100%.
very difficult if they have the ability and if they have the income and the ability to have that liquid cash that they can transfer over. And of course, these days there's lots of places, currency conversions, things like that, and that's where we as good real estate agents come into play to help with as well. Okay, so what is the opportunity for Milnet agents that are throughout the world? Obviously, referrals, we don't need to talk about that. That happens. But I think what some of this data to go back is showing is that there's a big opportunity as things kind of slow down in the United States that maybe a little bit more of a focus of some worldwide referrals, which are nice money. It comes in, you're not doing a whole lot of work per se, you're just making an introduction. EXP makes it very easy through the international platform. And with this foreign investment, of course, prices are rising. And so there's an opportunity for you as an agent to make some easy, good referral money while talking to your client base about the possibility of wanting to move abroad, which again, there's a lot of folks that are talking about it. And what I will also say is like it's not just moving abroad, but also investing abroad. We have some really cool partnerships and developments here that are tourist apartments that give a guaranteed 6% return. We have some other projects here that are through Marriott that allow for you to stay there at times, things like that. So a lot of interesting things that are happening in this new development that's happening. Co-sponsorship. I should have made this a specific slide itself, but this is huge for being a part of EXP. And if you think about this, if you're building your downline, if you have these different referral partners with someone in Spain, with someone in France, with someone in Portugal, and all of the markets that EXP is now in, and you're slowly doing co-sponsorship and making relationships with agents all over the world, I promise that you will be making some money with your downline. And this is a huge opportunity that EXP, of course, launched last year. John David and I are really focused on this because we have agents and we want to work with you in the United States that you can offer some of the education as far as YouTube and Instagram and things like that that many agents don't know. Why this is big too in Portugal. EXP has been around for, I think, well, I don't actually know how long they've been in Portugal, but it has not been as long as the United States for sure. And our base of agents is very small. The compensation that the franchise brokers here, which Remax is the largest in Portugal, is much different than EXP offers. And so we're trying to build out some ways to recruit. Well, this is where I would love to connect with you to learn ways that we could sponsor and co-sponsor, and bringing on agents in a new developing world. But a country. But I'd also say that this is an opportunity for you to really look at all of the places that EXP is launching, because, of course, the United States is a bit saturated right now. But if you really think broad, abroad and you think big, this is a good opportunity to expand your business, to send some referrals, but also to build your downline in a global way, which is pretty cool. Um, John David, do you want to speak to that at all?
I mean, that's well said. I think, there are a lot of opportunities here, and the ability to create that global business as we move forward is something that we are focused on because we think that, as the world, gets bigger and bigger and bigger, people are going to start to expand their horizons beyond just the United States. And there's just a lot of opportunity, not just in Lisbon, but everywhere else in the world that EXP is pushing themselves.
Absolutely. So think big. We would love to work with you. Love to talk about ways that we can co-sponsor and build that out. So hopefully after this presentation and some of the data that we've shared with you, specifically you're in the military network, where we could see partnering and you could be helping with your clients, is you obviously have military retirees that are in your sphere of influence. You probably have some investors that are also possible wanting to look at different options, remote contractors that are within the government. All of these folks have either the ability to move to Portugal or maybe wanting to invest some money, and there's a lot that is going on within Portugal and a lot of these countries that EXP is launching in. So there's a clear path to building your business, to growing your business in a global way, while also creating some partnerships with us, hopefully.
Mhm.
Um, Last is there, and we've made this sound easy. John, Dave, and I have been through it. We've been through it recently, but of course, there are things that you want to talk about. There are things that your clients need to think about. Taxes are a big one, of course. Insurance, legal counsel. I can't stress this enough that being in a country where laws may be a little more loose, that every penny that you pay on good legal counsel, hopefully you don't need to use it, but it's good to have that safety net and making sure that um, you feel committed with the big decisions that you're making. And again, we've created some great relationships here in Portugal for that. Inspections, for example, most people do not do inspections of homes, which sounds absolutely crazy, but that is not
They
done
don't.
here. We have great inspectors. We don't, even if it doesn't mean going back to the drawing board to talk about negotiations or whatnot. If you're buying a 100-year home, you need to have an inspection to know what's going on and what's underneath. And that's just the way
That's a
things have gotten a little bit different.
and that's a great point that, just to circle it all the way back, some of the standards of practice that you have in the United States for real estate, for responsible real estate agenting here are not practiced. So suddenly your perspectives and your ability to know what to do next, like how to convince somebody to have an inspection, here, like people just aren't doing it. But for us, that's something we insist upon with clients coming through, and everyone is always grateful. The other thing that I'm going to add is those taxes, well, the tax lawyers and tax accountants, insurance for medical, legal counsel, all of are much, much more affordable here in Portugal than they are in the United States. So some of those reasons not to get that in the United States, where it adds up to thousands and thousands and thousands of euros or dollars. Here, it's much more realistic to engage those types of advisors so that you can make the right decision without having to spend, a fortune just to find out that you shouldn't do something.
Absolutely. Okay, so a question real quick. I know that we're on the hour, so thank you for staying with us. Is who do you want to partner with? Of course, we'd love to partner with you, but I think these are certain questions that as coming from the military world, you have certain standards that you expect. And when you're talking to an agent in Spain or an agent in France, have they been through some of the experiences that you'll be sending your client with if you're sending a referral? Do they have options, and what is their even mindset when it comes to business? I can tell you that sometimes I work with agents here in Portugal and I go, I don't know. But that's where we'll come to this next slide is like agents are not licensed in the real estate industry here in Portugal. So there is a lot of this gray area. Unfortunately, I've been lied to my face too. There's it's just a different mentality. So um you want to obviously look and find people that have the same integrity and trust that you have because you are very dedicated if you're a military specialist to your clients and making sure that they're being taken care of. The other thing is there's no escrow that's here. So when you are doing a transaction, if you put you're usually sending 10% directly to the seller, which is a scary thing to think about sometimes. Mortgages, all of these things, they're a bit different here in Portugal. And like I'm saying, also the work ethic, the responsiveness of agents, and even their knowledge of the real estate world. Because when agents aren't licensed, that means that they haven't really had a whole lot of training or whatnot.
Mhm.
So thank you for being with us. This is our contact information. We'd love to chat with you if or connect with you on Instagram or whatever. If there's any way that we can help, that we can build your downline or referrals, we'd love to assist you.
Wow, guys, so much information. But you know what? It's really cool. Like what you just said, like I didn't know that agents weren't licensed, in Portugal. So all the information you shared is really helpful whenever like an opportunity for a referral might come up, or just even having this information could help us locate where we might find opportunities for these referrals, and it aids us in being able to have these conversations and set expectations, even like you have casual conversation with someone. Oh, I say I'm thinking about living abroad. Well, did you know that in Portugal, blah, 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 right? And so it just kind of having this information, like, or even if we don't remember everything you just said, but now we've like associate, I know I associate you with Lisbon as I see your Instagram all the time. So I'm like Josh and Lisbon. So if I have a question about Portugal, I'm going to talk to Josh, right? And then so, but that's super just having the ability to like have a resource, but even just having absorbed this information is super super helpful for identifying opportunities for these referrals, or even like for yourself, right? Like to me, I'm like, oh nice. Like you're, oh, everything's too, you could walk so much. I'm like, oh, that seems so wonderful. I bet the food is delicious. So that was me this whole time. I'm just like, wow, so nice. And then like the visas also kind of blew my mind. I'm like, that's it? That's all you got to make passively?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
a good point is like, a lot of us in our MilNet community have just some sort of disability rating, and boom, right there, like that's it. Easy peasy, ready to go. So yeah, I think a lot of people think it's more complicated than, I mean, not that it's not complicated, right? But I think a lot of people think to be able to get residency or citizenship in another country, it's like, oh, what a mission. That's impossible, blah, blah, blah. And that those
Or you have
minimum
to be a
requirements.
multi-millionaire.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
it's
it's
so
just not true.
yeah, thank you guys for like breaking it down and simplifying it, because I tend to live in La La Land sometimes, right? And I'm just like, I bet so many people have this dream and they just don't think they can, or they think it's too hard or whatever. And so I love hearing stuff like this and coming across this kind of stuff on socials, because it's like, you know what, you totally can.
So Michelle, John had an interesting question about the language barrier, which is
Ah,
which is a unique one. There really isn't one here. In fact, as Josh and I both are studying Portuguese and to learn it, it's a challenge to learn Portuguese because almost no one speaks it publicly. And you go to a restaurant, you will literally run into servers here that do not speak Portuguese. And if you try and speak Portuguese, they'll be like, "Ah, do you speak English?" Um, Portugal, I think, is the second largest uh, non-native speaking English speaking country, if that made sense. Uh, Almost everyone here speaks English
Yeah, I
all
go
the
to
way
my
down,
boot
and
camp
there's
class. It's in
reasons for
English.
that, but
Yeah.
it's 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 fascinating. So, you go to Spain and you have to speak Spanish. Here, there are people that have spent 6, 7 years in Portugal and just haven't, especially if they're coming from some European nation and they don't need to learn the language as part of your residency requirement. They just don't, because they already speak English and everybody else does, and they speak French or German or wherever they come from, and they that's sufficient. And you can't do that in Germany or France, the other way around. So, to your answer your question succinctly, there is no language barrier problem.
That's fascinating. That's a great question, John. That that blows my mind. That's so fascinating. It reminds me of I went to Japan and South Korea over the summer, and in Japan it was a little hard, you know. But when
Yeah,
we went to Seoul, everybody was speaking English, and I'm like,
yeah.
oh, and so super cool, super, super cool. Does anyone else have any questions before we wrap up? Because I feel like I would have questions. I just can't think of them right now because I'm just still blown away by the information I did receive. Um, but yeah, no, if nobody else has any questions, I really appreciate you guys for coming on here. This is not stuff that we normally hear about. So I'd love to change. I'd love that we're changing it up and having different conversations and kind of expanding our minds into like other life possibilities, but other real estate possibilities as well overseas and not just limiting ourselves to our little town and our, just, oh, so and so based nearby. Like we are expanding our minds and growing and, thinking outside the box for other opportunities. So thank you guys for sharing. And yeah, this video will be on YouTube, of course. So probably later today. And so feel free to share it in your circles if you'd like. And yeah, see ya. We'll see you guys here. What day is it? We'll see you guys here back next month for our next session, first and third Tuesdays. I almost said Wednesdays. First and third Tuesdays of every month, we have a session here at 12 p.m. Eastern. Again, Josh, John David, thank you so much for being here with us, and we will see you soon.
Thank
All
you.
right, guys.
Ciao.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
All right, thanks everybody. Bye.